Okay, so this is the final reflection for this class. And so the first question asked was, how has my understanding of the social world changed because of this class? And I think with this class, it's helped me understand that the things going on in this world right now maybe isn't just like an individual thing or a singular experience. Often it's due to like the different societal structures that we live in, so like school, the economy, education, things like that, healthcare. And often these individual issues are actually part of a greater, like, complex system that's shaped by things like historical context, cultural context, and just general structural forces. So things that, like, often then seem individual are connected to bigger patterns. So these systems then influence people's lives and then how they think and how other people think of them. So often, like we see in politics right now, we see Donald Trump refer to Hispanic and Latino people who have come to this country as like lazy, and that's why they don't succeed in life. That's the rhetoric he often spreads. But often, these people who immigrate to the country, they come to the country with less money than maybe the middle class in America have. So then they don't have the same, they're not starting off from the same place. And then it's not just because of economics, maybe it's because of like the social standings or like power and all that stuff. So maybe let's say this, like a family who's recently immigrated, they want to get the best education, they want to give their kid the best chance, and they want to send their kid to a good school. But then maybe a middle class family, they have the money to send their kid to that school, whereas the other family doesn't. So there's already like the hierarchy is being made clear because one could get a better education and then could then possibly get a better job, but it wasn't at the fault of this other family. So I think that was quite interesting because it put into perspective that it's not just people's personal problem that they haven't worked hard enough. It's actually because of a bigger system in place, and I think that was just genuinely quite interesting, especially like in the world we live in right now. And then another other question you asked was, what are the two primary things that I'll take away from this class? And I think my main thing first was just generally understanding inequality in this country, because I think there's so much of it, but it's difficult to understand how it works and like where it's come from. So it's not just like on the surface, like people don't like black people or they don't think poor people should have chances. It's more deeper and more systemic and like historical kind of. So whether it's about, race, gender, or class, it kind of, I learned that it's not just like, it helped me understand how these systems like are able to continue and how they shape like these people's access to educations and their jobs and housing. So that's how these like systemic issues keep continuing, and I think that was quite interesting because I think the thing I like stood out to me most is we were watching a video and it just because Cory Booker, who's a politician in the government, and how his family, they weren't allowed to buy a house due to redlining, and they could afford the house, and it was like there wasn't an issue, but they didn't want to sell it to these people because they were black, and they didn't want them moving into a white neighborhood because they thought it would bring the overall price of the housing in the area down and then the class of the housing down. So they then hired a white man to go place an offer in the house on behalf of them, and it was accepted. And then when Cory Booker's family showed up, they had an issue and they were like, we don't want to give this, please don't take the house, because they thought they would be ruining the community. So I think that was quite interesting. And then another thing I learned in this class was just to be like more empathetic to people. And I think this mainly came from when we learned about transgender people, because I mean, again, especially today, I think it's such a heavy and controversial issue, but it really comes down to like just respecting people, because from what I learned, it was like when we were reading about gender and identity and everything, it's like what we were taught or what we originally thought so many like years ago, like that gender was simply binary and it's just a man and a woman. It's actually very complicated, and there's like non-binary people and there's transgender people, and it's just like it's a very difficult concept, and we learn about people passing and stuff, and how then there's another level of privilege of trans people who can pass and then who don't and things like that. And I think I just learned to be more empathetic because it's just a very like difficult topic, and it's very difficult on these people who are experiencing it. So yeah, that's kind of what I learned.